Hello kids, how are you all doing? I hope you're all doing well because we're going to talk about a lot of characteristics that we talked about in our last class, and we will move further in the chapter. This chapter that I'm talking about is the living world. We're talking about the diversity of the organisms. The first topic that I picked up was the characteristics of a living being. In our last class, we talked about how organisms, there are different organisms, and they have characteristics so that we can understand what is a living organism and what is not a living organism. There were characteristics that we talked about. There were certain characteristics that were definitive, which were like the standards. Every living organism has to perform them to be a living organism. There were others that are performed by the living organisms but are not the definitive characteristics. The definitive characteristic example was metabolism. Non-definitive characteristic was reproduction. So we're going to move further in the chapter. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting things, and we're also going to talk about death and aging. So let's get started. The first topic is consciousness and sensitivity. What is consciousness and what is sensitivity? So consciousness basically is when you're conscious about, when you're understanding what is happening around you, in the environment, in your room, in your life, anything. Humans are very, very intelligent organisms, so they also have not only environmental conscious, they also have an inner conscious, which is known as self-consciousness, right? So what happens here is that an organism, a human being, and any other living organism will always understand what is happening around them, because they need to survive. And for survival of a human being, there's two things that are very, very important. One of them will be feeding, second will be breeding. So what happens is every organism will understand what they need to feed and with whom they need to breed, because they need survival, and they're very, very conscious organisms. For example, let me give you an example of a very basic organism, which is Porifera. It looks like a dead plant, right? The sponges look like a dead plant, but even after that, sponges can perform functions. They can breed and they can feed. And when they're feeding, they exactly know what to eat and what to not. They do not start eating mud just because they're underwater. They have a specific diet that they're supposed to have, and they will always have that, which means they're very, very conscious about what they are eating, right? Similarly, a dog will never try and breed with a cat, because a dog knows that he is supposed to breed with a female dog, but always a dog, right? So that is an example of how organisms understand who to feed and who to breed, right? Now coming to the definition here, the definition says it's the ability to detect changes in the environment and to give responses towards it according to the stimuli. Now what is stimuli? Stimuli is the reaction that we're talking about. If it's, for example, if I talk about humans, when it's too hot outside, what do? I wear clothes according to it. I will prefer cotton over any other material. Then I will, preferably stay in AC, right? These are the things that I can do. Other than that, my body itself will start sweating so that my body can cool down, stay better in the environment, right? So that hot, that made me choose my clothes differently, make me stay in AC, is my response to it. But the hotness outside or the hotness in the environment is the stimuli. Every organism reacts to a stimuli. For example, if somebody tries to pinch me here, I will retrieve back my hand. So this was the stimuli. Retreating my hand is the response, right? So there's always a response as a reaction to a stimuli. Next it says humans are self-conscious. What is self-conscious? Self-conscious is when you understand what is happening inside you, whether it be hunger, whether it be that you're not feeling very well today. Sometimes we're off, right? Sometimes we know that something is there and we're upset about something. How do you know that? Because we're conscious about what is happening inside our body, inside our brain too. Similarly, when I'm hungry, I know I am hungry, right? There's no other person that comes to me and tells me, oh, you look hungry, right? I know when I'm hungry. So this is self-consciousness that my body shows towards my own self, right? So this is the self-consciousness or the inner consciousness of a human being. There are a lot of examples of self-consciousness. When you meditate, you have a control over your brain. Why are we doing that? Because we want to be self-conscious. When you meditate, you reach a state where you can feel everything around you. You can actually feel the air at every part of your body that is exposed to that air. That is basically so that we can be very, very self-conscious about everything that is happening, whether it be our emotions, whether it be what is happening in our environment. It makes us conscious, right? And also because it cleanses out, but we understand what is happening, right? Meditation tries and cleanse out all the things. It makes our breathing better. Our body turns into a better version. But at the same time, it also helps us understand everything. If you're in a bad mood, if you're constantly in a bad mood, a lot of people will tell you to meditate. Because meditation calms your brain down. How do we know that it calms our brain down? Because we're self-conscious. So we will understand if our brain is calm or it's hyperactive, right? When your mother, calls you up after you've lied to her, you're always conscious. You know that you're scared. You will start shivering. Your heart will start beating faster. So these are the consciousness. We know what is happening inside our body as well. And we obviously know what is happening outside our body too. Now, coming to the second topic of today, that is adaptation. What is adaptation, kids? Let's talk about basic language, then we'll come to the scientific terms and words, okay? If I make you live in, for example, I live in North India. What if you or anybody tells me, or if I in future get a job in South India and I have to go there, what then? Now there's a different culture in North India, right? And there's also a very, very different food style, living style. Everything is very, very different from in North India and in South India. So how am I going to survive there? When I go there, I will understand what the people are doing. I will start understanding what food they eat. This is not just an example for South India. This is a global thing. Anywhere that I go, I will try and understand what the people are like. I will understand what the culture is, what is the food that they try and eat, what is some things that they like, what is famous there, right? So after a few days or maybe a few months, I will exactly understand their culture. This is my adaptation to their culture, right? So I am trying to live there, and to live there, I have to make a certain changes in my life. That is my adaptation. I am adapting to the culture, right? So similarly, it's the act or the process of changing to better suit the situation. What is the situation? A body part or a feature or a behavioral change that helps in living things survive and function better in the environment. What I'm saying here is, let's talk about feature changes first. Okay, so the GIF, if you can see it, the GIF shows a polar bear with his kids. So you see there's a huge polar bear and the two kids, all of them living in extreme colds of Atlantica, extreme cold, everywhere there's snow, all white is snow actually. So how is this organism surviving in such cold environment? How? Because the body has adapted to it. They know how to live here. Now, how do they live here? There's a certain feature change. What is that feature change? What is feature? A feature is something that our body changes because of that adaptation. So their body tried to adapt to the cold, and what they did was, so there's this fur on the upper layer of the skin for them. Below that upper layer of fur, there's a huge layer of fat below it. So that fat protects them, keep their body temperature high, right? So their feature exactly changed so that they can survive in environments like these. Now talking about behavior. I already gave you an example for the behavior part. What is behavior? I will try and understand the culture. I will try and understand the feeding habits of the people there. I will try and understand what is the festivals, right? So changing your behavior according to where you're living is the behavioral change that you show towards an environment for your adaptation. Okay? I hope you understood. Now coming to evolution, let's look at the GIF first. So, a monkey turns into a human being and now it's all filled with technology. Let's talk about evolution in very simple terms. Now kids, what happened is, you all know that our body is changing, right? We're always changing. There are reactions happening in our body. So our body changes. But in evolution, what happens is an organism develops so much that it becomes an entirely different species. For example, this is chimpanzee. We are known to be ancestral with chimpanzees. We have an ancestral relationship. Ancestral means somebody who has lived before you, right? Like my grandfather would be my ancestor, my great grandfather would be my ancestor, right? So those ancestral relationships, we eventually have those ancestral relationships with a chimpanzee, but we're so much developed than them, right? If you compare a human being and a chimpanzee, you will exactly see the difference. Even by the look at their faces, you will know this is a human being, this is a chimpanzee, right? So this is the evolution that we've had, and we're still changing. Every organism is still changing. Why? Because the environment outside our body is changing. Now let's come to the basic definition. The basic definition says the change in the characteristics of a species over several generations. Generations means this process did not happen in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years. It did not. It's not a one-day process. It's not a one generation process. It's not like a chimpanzee gave birth to a human being. No. We evolved slowly, which is shown in here. Chimpanzee started standing up straight, but that too took him certain generations. So it went from here to slowly starting to learn how to stand on two legs, right? And if you see, there are changes in the things that they are holding to. So their lifestyle also changed. They came from forest to now we're living in a civilization which has a system. We have a government, we have a parliament, we have schools, we have offices. We are very organized now. So that also evolved because of human beings. Okay, so this is a generation change, several generations. Then it relies on the process of natural selection. Now let's come to a very important term which is natural selection. What is natural selection, kids? Natural selection is when our environment or our universe is trying to choose something and reject something. Natural means nature. Selection means to approve of something and to disapprove something else, right? So what our nature is trying to do here is, it is trying to pick up the best of organisms, let them live and others can die. Like dinosaurs extinct because their survival was very difficult in the times the environment was changing, right? What I'm trying to say is, if you have watched the movie Jurassic Park, the environment back then is very different from the environment we live in right now. There's so much pollution here, right? The forests are decreasing. There were certain dinosaurs that only lived in forest. The water bodies are changing. Water bodies are getting polluted. There were so many dinosaurs that lived in water itself. Now a dinosaur is a huge organism. You can't say we can put him in a pond and he can still live. Okay, so do not ask me those questions. Anyways, so what our environment is trying to do is select the better one. Now let me give you a real life, this time based example. COVID-19, the coronavirus. What is coronavirus doing? It is letting the nature choose people with a better immune system. Now everybody might have, for example, let me say there's a population of 10 people. All of them got infected by coronavirus. Now, only the people with a better immune system will survive, right? And people who do not, we can try save them by artificial stuff, but the nature did not select them because they had a weak immune system. So what is the nature trying to do? Nature is trying to choose the better one here. Okay. So this is exactly what natural selection is, and this is not one day thing. It happens every day and it will happen till the end of the earth. Natural selection is very important, which is pretty much why we as organisms and also as we as teachers always say be the better version of yourself, because it's very, very important for survival. Even the basic survival that you're living today, you have to be better in your exams. You have to be a better kid and you have to be better for your own self so that you can be happy, right? So a better version is good for survival. A primitive version or a normal version is still okay for rejection. A company for a job will only choose you when you're better than the other contestants, right? So better wins. Now coming to the next topic. Okay, it says repair and regeneration. What is repair and what is regeneration? Let's talk about it. First, let's talk about repair. Repair means trying to fix something. This is repairing. Okay, but at the same time it's also regeneration if we're talking about living organisms. Why? Because although the wound is repaired, the cells are regenerated. There are new cell formation here. So new cell formation is regeneration, but the overall wound is trying to heal itself. The healing part is known as repair, right? So it says the ability to repair the damage or a lost body part. Now kids, if you see, it says lost. If you lose your finger, will you get it back? No, right? So what happened, what I'm talking about, what this word lost here is, certain organisms has a capability of turning their lost body parts and developing them again, which means if you've seen a lizard can lose its tail and regenerate its tail by themselves. This is what I mean by lost body parts. Although it's a quality that not all living organisms have. We might have a regenerating liver. Our liver is regenerating, that is true. Which means if the cells are damaged in our liver, they will heal themselves and they will regenerate. But there are certain conditions for that too. A person cannot drink every day and then expect their liver to be healthy because it can regenerate, right? Because drinking affects our liver. So there's something that is affecting the liver every day, and also because the cells are trying to regenerate, it does not work like that. So we need to have certain conditions for that. Why is that a lizard can regenerate its tail but humans can't? If I lose a finger, I want my finger back too. Why don't I get it back? So it is because we're a very, very complex organism. We are a better advanced organism. Certain things only happen in organism in the lower level because they have cells that can regenerate. Our cells only divide, there's no regeneration. No cells in our body can regenerate themselves. If they die, they die, right? Except the liver, of course, we've talked about it. Now coming to the second part, which says heal wounds. That is exactly what is here. I have a wound on my finger which will heal in a few days, right? So I know that my body is capable enough. And why do we heal ourselves? Because our body is intelligent. It doesn't want to lose a lot of blood. So what it does is, if there's a cut, our cells will try and come at this place, repair this thing and stop the blood. Which is why, if you have noticed, if there's a cut on your body anywhere, you might have a small cut here, any part of your body, if you have a small cut, the blood clots there. Matlab, it's like blood will flow for a few seconds, but after that it stops. Why does it stop? Because if this is my cut, okay, so this is my skin and this is my cut. Okay, I was cut here. So what happens is, my cells will try come here, accumulate here, so that we can regenerate and heal the parts here, right? So there's no regeneration in humans, like we said, so we can repair. So my wound will repair, which is why the blood starts clotting as soon as we cut ourselves, or by mistake it's been cut because of certain reasons. Now, I don't know if all of you are like that, but I bump into things a lot. What is bumping? I might walk in the wall as well. Okay, so what happens is, it leaves bruises on our body sometimes. Sometimes we bump into something that we don't even realize will mark us or bruise us, but it still does. But our body heals that too. So until unless the head is cut off from the body, our body is capable of healing them itself, right? There are certain injuries that are not supposed to happen in the organs themselves, but the major types of skin cuts are effective enough for repair and regeneration in organisms. Similarly, not only humans are an example of repair and regeneration. I talked about lizard too, but let's talk about plants now. All plants can, it's not necessary that they can regenerate, but they have a better capability because they're better organisms, and they're also lower than human beings. So they're in the middle, so they can do enough for themselves, which is why when a leaf is cut and when a leaf is taken out from a plant, the plant do not get adversely affected because of it. But at the same time, if I cut my own finger off, that is gonna hurt a lot. Okay, and not everybody is prone to that pain. Sometimes people even faint because of that pain. But have you ever seen a plant faint because I took that leaf off? No. So repair is also there. It's not a complete repair, but it's still there. For example, there's a branch or a small plant, okay? That small plant is going to die because I am not giving that plant enough water, enough sunlight, right? So it's trying to kill itself, okay? So the plant is dying. What can I do for that? Now it's dying. If this is my battery region, it's slowly coming down for the plant. But then I keep the plant outside in the sunlight. I water it timely. I give it all the fertilizers that they need. I give them good soil. What will happen? The plant will start climbing. Plant will start to grow. So an organism which was about to die is now starting to grow again. So this is the kind of repair plants can also show. A lot of organisms can show a better regeneration and repair, but it depends upon the complexity of the organism. On what? Complexity. How complex an organism is what defines repair and regeneration for an organism. Now coming to aging. What is aging, kids? Aging is something that starts from the very first day of our life. We take birth. We don't even take birth. We are a zygote. A zygote starts aging as soon as it's built. What is aging? Now, aging is a process during which the structural and functional changes accumulate. the reactions that are happening in our body starts to accumulate in our body, affecting it in a matter that it leads to death. What I'm trying to say is, if you breathe, you're dying. Why are you dying? Because the oxygen that you're taking in your body is not entirely used in our body. So what happens is that oxygen starts to degrade our body from the inside. So it's called aging. Our body is aging because of the processes that we are performing. What is the last stage of the aging? It's called death. Now there are two types of death, kids. There's clinical death. I hope you all know what death is, so I'm not going to go into the details of what exactly death is, but let's talk about clinical and biological death. Clinical death is when you die in a hospital. What does a doctor check? Blood circulation and breathing stops. Other than that, your pupils stop reacting to the light. But in biological death, it's a condition when all the organs of the body, including the brain, are ceased in functioning, which means in biological death, we're dead from head to toe. Our brain is not working, no organ is working. So this is death. I hope you've all understood what I've said, right? And in the next class, we'll continue the other topics of the chapter. Thank you for coming.